can hear me now. Hi,
There you are.
Hey there, sir. Welcome.
thanks.
How do you be?
I'm pretty good. I'm out walking though. So well,
Yeah, you're kind of cutting in and out. It's hard to hear you.
yeah, I'm walking and the wind gets to be too loud
All right.
uh, on the Bluetooth.
Well, enjoy your walk.
Thanks.
Hey,
Welcome,
Rex. Welcome.
Rex.
Hi there.
Hey, welcome, welcome, welcome. How do you be?
I'm doing well. Thank you.
Awesome. Rock and roll.
I made it.
Yeah, nice.
Are there others in the group?
There are.
Oh, good.
We're on rock and roll. It's a small. Yesterday, it's interesting. The first time we did it, we had a pretty full house. A good group. And yesterday it was about 5 minutes before anybody showed up, and then there were 4 or 5. I was saying to you when we spoke this morning that I've been involved in the work for 30 plus years, and so it's just kind of an old home meeting. Everybody just saying hello, and it looks like that's where we're going again today. It's kind of strange. Like,
So you're not doing the same format you were doing on your radio program, or are you? I'm a little
yes,
confused.
yeah,
Yes.
same format.
Cool.
Same format. It did change somewhat toward the end there with Needle because we couldn't bring callers in, so it pretty much was a monologue rather than an interactive conversation. But
Right.
we're heading for that interactive
Yeah, we've actually
conversation
got
format.
3 other people have joined us now. 4. So
Yay!
they're coming
Welcome,
on
Sally,
Cool.
Cammy,
No.
and then whoever the 541 number is. Welcome. Glad you're with us.
Oh, sure. I can see the people's names this way. It's kind of nice.
Yeah. Hit the participant button, and you're looking at who's there.
Yep. Very cool.
Yeah, it is. So I'm going to open the floor and say Motorola motto. Welcome. Glad you're here. And does anyone have any thoughts, any questions before we start to move in any given direction? Maybe your question will determine the direction we go for the hour. So wide open to saying hello. Welcome, Celinda. Questions? Hit your mute button, actually *6, and that will open your microphone up so you can chat with us. If you have a thought or a question.
I keep forgetting. Yeah, how about breathing? I have realized.
How about that?
I was in Dr. Tim's support group last night, and an amazing conversation came up and about hypervigilance. And I have making links now, and Dr. Tim helped me provide a format where I could do my forgiveness work in the most is the easiest way for me and get me out of my intellect, because I've made connections. When I think, I don't breathe. When I think, I'm tense in my eyes because I'm looking at my inner screen about my story or whatever is going on, whatever I'm thinking about. And I've connected that hypervigilance to not breathing, because I came up in a support group also.
Right.
And then I realized that since the intellect was my strongest ability to keep myself safe, which is the primary issue for me, safety, and that I avoided meditation or still point or any of those kinds of breathing, meditative kinds of practices, my mind and my ego would just distract me or throw me back into this lifelong habit of thinking my way out of the box. So I'm just really excited, and I'm putting my will, which is very unwilling. I am reining my will in, and I am determined to learn how to meditate, to be still, to use prayer in the Aramaic understanding of prayer instead of just muttering what I want from God's wonderful universe, or thanking God for what I think I've gotten from the Walmart in the sky. And so I just wanted to share that. And any thoughts, any helps, because it'll be tiny steps in the beginning just to get myself be willing to be disciplined enough to do it on a schedule, a ritual, sort of habituated schedule for myself daily. But I wanted to share that for anybody else because I'm highly reactive. Oh, duh, because of the hypervigilance or whatever, because I created my own hypervigilance and because I created my own thoughts of I must be safe at all costs. So thank you for letting me rattle on.
Well, my first thought is that what you're actually talking about is not thinking. It's cycling information in the mind. It's being locked into and addicted to the power person story, which is held in what the scriptures, if you go back and look in the scriptures, they talked about the mind of man. That was one option. And then there was another mind, and that was the mind of Christ. And we had those two minds that we could be living in. Both were inside of us. So when I say, don't think about the color of your car, of course, people will, in a workshop, when I ask that question, say, now, what are you thinking about? Most people say, well, I'm thinking about the color of my car. And my offering is, no, well, actually, you're not thinking at all. All you're doing is a machine reaction through resonance. I set up a frequency with my voice. You've got brain cells for that frequency, and those brain cells fire. And that's just cycling information, not thinking. Thinking is a spiritual activity. It's not a mental activity. And of course, the non-being mind, the non-being world, has a cheap copy of everything real in the spiritual world. And that non-being mind can get pretty smart and really, get things figured out. And, oh man, look at this. I got it all together in that non-being mind, and it cycles information. And in the scriptures, that's symbolized by John the Baptist. We've talked about this a little bit recently. You remember that John the Baptist was called the raving maniac in the desert. My offering is the reason he was called the raving maniac in the desert is because, and recognizing that the word desert is a code word for the unconscious. So each of us is going to have to find or interact with that one who can lead us back into our own desert, our own unconscious, where the raving maniac resides. And that's carbon-based memory. That's the data bank that is generations and generations and generations old. And it puts thinking on a pedestal as though thinking is the pinnacle. And again, it's cycling information. It's really not even thinking. John the Baptist was the pinnacle of that. You remember they said that he was the highest of those born of women. And my offering would be that in the Aramaic, that would mean that, of course, our body-mind units are born of a woman. And this, if we were to take our body-mind units into a laboratory and say, hey, break this down and tell me what it's made of, they'd tell you that the base element is carbon. So we have this carbon-based device that stores information and cycles information. And the John the Baptist level of consciousness or level of mind is of that world. And he was the highest, acknowledge him as highest. But then you'll remember they said, and he's the lowest in the kingdom. I mean, he's got the intellect. He's got it all figured out. Man, look at this. He's rocking. But he is zero when it is stepping into the mind of Christ. And so when we're cycling information that has unresolved generational patterns and power person dynamics, the tendency is to hold the breath, because the holding of the breath is, or the movement of the breath determines how energetic patterns move in carbon-based memory. So when I hold my breath, the parts of my carbon-based memory that I don't want to deal with are walled off from me. You know, we create this veil. When they said the veil of the temple must be rent in twain, it was not a purple curtain in a church. It's the barrier between the subconscious and the unconscious mind. And holding the breath is a way to inhibit the movement of what it is we don't want to look at, don't want to deal with, and don't want to feel. And so we can figure it all out in our heads, at least it seems we can. But as was pointed out with John the Baptist, he was the lowest in the realm, which would be of the other mind, which would be the mind of Christ. The objective of the work is to reach into the mind of Christ. Yes, you're going to have to meet your John the Baptist, the one that can show you your raving maniac self. And usually, you know, depending on the power person dynamic, what you want to do with that one who could show you is you want to take off his head or her head. You know, they become the object of projection. And especially if it ties into a power person dynamic. So we see, you know, have to be better than. That's just the John the Baptist game. And then there's the mind of Christ, which would be literally the exact same mind that the Creator moves energy with. And again, in the non-being world, that John the Baptist consciousness has a cheap copy of everything real in the spiritual dimension. And when people get it figured out, they think, man, I'm rock and roll. I got it all handled. But it's zero in the actuality. And so the mind of Christ has its opposite, the Antichrist, that which would go against the advice, the experience, and I hesitate to call it perception, but awareness based in love and breath, rather than awareness based in what's cycling in carbon-based memory from the past. Because everything from carbon-based memory, by definition, you know, you can't get a piece of information out of your computer that isn't in your computer, or that your computer doesn't have access to on the internet. It's got to be in there. And obviously it's got to be in there. It's from the past. You know, you remember that passage where there's one gentleman who's really gets excited about Yeshua's teachings. Yeah, man, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. But first I have to go home and bury my mother and father. Well, his mother and father had not just died. He wasn't going home to literally put them in a grave. He was going to fulfill his duty as a son of taking care of his parents until they died. So he might be gone for 20, 30, 40, 50 years before he ostensibly comes back to do the work of Yeshua. And Yeshua says, hey, buddy, if you're going to do this, you come and do it. The avoidance is over. Let the dead bury the dead. Let the blind lead the blind. Let those who are living out of carbon-based memory go. And if you're going to actually do my work, then what you're going to do is you're going to take up your cross and you're going to follow the directions I give you. And that means you're going to get to look at every power person dynamic of every generation. And my offering or my take is that the reason for hypervigilance is because one was not safe, usually within the family system, and didn't know when they were going to be blindsided next. It leads to learning disabilities, leads to all kinds of things, because, you know, if you can't concentrate on in safety on the issue at hand, let's say as a child, if you're learning to read or whatever, if every 30 seconds you've got to take your attention away from the teacher that's teaching you and look for, is there anybody coming up to whack me in the head, anybody coming along to abuse me, then that hypervigilant state, you know, becomes an inhibitor for everything. And when we create the opening for the active presence of love that is the mind of Christ, we need to make the space for that to be delivered into our tissue structure. And my take, my best understanding at this point is that it is Ruka Dakudsha, the breath, that moves the energy that comes via Christ's mind into carbon-based memory and becomes the master solvent for all of the energetic patterns we're being hypervigilant for. If the source of our thinking is carbon-based memory, then, as Yeshua said, your father, meaning the source of your life, the source of your thinking, in this case, he says, is a liar. And it's the father of liars. There is no truth in him. There is no truth in carbon-based memory. There's accurate information. You can say 2 and 2 is 4. It said 4, therefore it must know the truth. No, it just has information that's been structured into it. It's got nothing to do with truth. Disconnected from active present love, there is no life. There is no truth in carbon-based memory. There can be some good information, some crappy information. And so when he talks about separating from mother and father, he's not saying to go away from or to betray your parents, but rather any of the dynamics stored in your carbon-based memory system, generational patterns of rage, of guilt, of fear, of pain, of drama and trauma with power person, you're going to need to work through it. And that means you're going to have to allow the delivery system for active love into your cellular structure. And my best understanding at this point is Ruka Takucha is it. It is the breath. To take time to spend in quiet, in stillness with your breath is to allow the delivery of the master solvent for all trauma and pain to be brought into the storage system, the cell where that pain is stored, and then beyond the cell into the genes. Because the mind of man, carbon-based memory, literally includes everything that's gone before us in terms of genetic information. And so allowing the breath to go into the deepest places, and this is where Yeshua said, you got to close the door. You got to go in the closet and close the door. You've got to go into that quiet place. You've got to take time for that. Now, well, John the Baptist level might say, no, we got excitement. Look at all these things we do. Look, study books, learning. Look what we got. Like, no. And in the last analysis, you've got to turn it over to Ruka. And Ruka in Aramaic is she who undoes the effects or errors and teaches us the truth. And as you learn to soften into the rock hard, solid, cellular resistance to feeling what's there, to feeling, the song about Vincent van Gogh, where the melody line says, this world was never meant for one as beautiful as you. Each of us, that song's being written to each of us. And the world of hostility and fear and rage and guilt and attack and hypervigilance and sadness and competition and winning and having to beat your power person down or whatever, be better than. All of that has to go. And it goes on the wings of the breath. And so to get into that closet, get into that quiet place, to let go of all the outer stimulation, all the noise, all the intellect, all that's going on, and allow that subtle, quiet breath to penetrate right down into the genes where the root dynamic is of every person's power point. Power person. And to deliver to the breath to that, it's like breath is to trauma what heat is to water. If I have this hard, solid physical thing called a block of ice, and I add heat to it, and I add heat to it, and I add heat to it, that adding of heat is going to continuously step up the movement of the molecules until the ice becomes liquid. If I keep adding heat, then the liquid is going to become gaseous and free-floating, and it's gone. Going to dissipate and disappear. If I take away heat, then that gaseous form of H2O, water, becomes liquid. If I keep taking away the heat, it's going to become solid. My take is that's a perfect metaphor for trauma. If I take my breath away from it, it keeps the trauma locked in the cell and unable to be moved. In the same way as if I add heat to water or to ice, it becomes a gas and free floating and it's gone. If I add breath, especially to the generational trauma patterns, if I can spot them and really allow the breath to go into those deepest places, then literally on an energetic level, those trauma patterns begin to melt. And as they melt, your perceptual system is freed of them. You no longer substitute a trauma-based mental construct for the situation in the world that's simply coming to perhaps embrace you. But the person who hasn't dealt with their trauma, they can take the person who's coming to embrace them and turn that person into the source of their trauma by literally holding the breath, which keeps the unconscious unconscious. And yet, whatever this person who's approaching resonates in us, if they resonate what we've dissociated from, then we'll literally take those thought disorders, and because the mind can turn thoughts into pictures, it'll turn that thought disorder into a picture of who I think I'm focused on. And so I get a picture in my mind of a body that I'm sure is you. The truth is that body's painted on the inside of my eyeballs from the energetic patterns within me. And when I'm holding my breath, that's locked in, it's held there. And everywhere I project that content, I see the problem out there. When I finally allow everything to soften, when I let go of Satan inside of me, Satan in Aramaic meaning the resistor, one who misleads, when the tension at the core of the gut or the core of the neck or the bowel or the feet or wherever it is, when I let the breath in there, then whatever trauma is there begins to move from its seemingly solid, locked-in physical state to where it dissolves and dissipates and you're freed of it. So I would support you in encouraging you in starting to take time on a daily basis. Time, I'd suggest tithing your time. 24-hour day, 2.4 hours in your own quiet space, just being with the breath and observing what is loosed by that. And watch everything change. Does that speak to you, Celinda?
Yes, it does. And I remember that my friend who wanted me to go to Vipassana, and I just felt like the young man in the Bible who said, no, I have to take care of my husband, I have to take care of my garden, I have to take care of what I need to do with this volunteering situation. I need to take care of cooking the foods. There's no time unless I don't want to sleep at all. And being fatigued from hypervigilance, that was my excuse.
That's a big load to carry.
It is a big load to carry. And so, but the one thing they said, they suggested when you go home, an hour in the morning and an hour at night. And I thought, that's almost impossible, but maybe that isn't impossible.
Yeah, actually, you can do 2, 3, 4 hours in a day and an evening. If you choose to. It just depends what your priorities are. But the most common, and I like, you've heard me, recommend this film before. There's a great film which has a lot of beautiful lessons in it. but the one that strikes me the strongest, and it's the film It's a Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, that is ostensibly about Mr. Rogers.
Mr. Rogers.
Yeah, but it isn't about Mr. Rogers at all. It's actually about the guy who was assigned, who worked for Esquire magazine, and was assigned to do an interview with Mr. Rogers. And he didn't want to do the interview. He resisted doing the interview, and his editor, true story, editor at Esquire magazine said, "You are going to interview with Mr. Rogers. We want this story for our American Heroes series." And so he finally succumbs, and he's sitting there with Mr. Rogers, and Mr. Rogers has a presence that doesn't allow people to stay in their stuff for too long. He's a safe enough space that the veil in their temples start to open, and literally this interviewer, in the middle of his interview with Mr. Rogers, gets up and leaves the room. You know, he's come from Esquire magazine to interview one of the most popular TV people of all time, and the guy gets up and leaves the room. And what that, to me, so poignantly illustrates is why most people will not pick up and do the tools, will not do the work. Illustrates it so powerfully. And basically what I hear this man screaming, raging at the top of his lungs as he leaves the room. Now, this isn't what's externally happening, but my offering is this is what's internally happening as he gets up and leaves the room, because Mr. Rogers asked a question about his childhood. It's, "Don't make me look. I don't want to go there. I don't want to feel it. I don't want to deal with it." And anything that's handed that will take people there, people will ragingly scream. And again, maybe not externally, but "Don't make me look." Watch that film and just watch for that moment. It's, to me, it's so poignant. There are many other beautiful, lessons to be learned in that film, but that one is just so powerful. And when you watch people who, "Oh, it's too hard. Oh, it's too long. Oh, it's too big. No, I can't. No, I don't." Well, okay, you don't have to, but if you want to heal, sooner or later you're going to have to use the tools to do it. And the breath, the breath is so important. You go back and listen to Yeshua, and Yeshua says, "You can deny me. No big deal," in essence, is what he says. "But don't deny this one that I came to connect you with." What is this he came to connect us with? Ruka Dekutsha, the breath. And what do most people spend most of their lives doing? Holding their breath. What is that? That's the denial of the Holy Spirit. Now, there's a Greek misinterpretation that the denial of the Holy Spirit is the unforgivable sin. But what was actually said in that passage is the denial of Ruka Dekutsha, the breath, the denial of that which will bring you resolution, will leave you in unforgiveness. There's no unforgivable sin. Although I've worked with people, I can remember one man in particular. I mean, he was getting up into his 70s, and he, from the time he was a teenager, he believed, literally his whole life, he believed that he was going to go to hell because at a younger age, he had denied the Holy Spirit. And he lived his whole life knowing, I mean, this man really, and he's not the only one that I've met over the years, really believed, "I am going to burn in a hellfire for eternity because I did this." And there's like no such idea in the scriptures. There is an idea that, in essence, we could say, so here's the solution. If you engage this, then your hell, your internal, the thing you're hypervigilant about that you don't want to look at that's inside of you, will disappear. And if you use it, it'll be gone. If you don't use it, it will never be gone. That's what they call unforgivable sin, but it was just, this is what will leave you in unforgiveness if you don't allow the solution in to do the work that needs to be done. And the epitome of doing the work is in the breath. So my invitation would be to resolve to gently, do it in a way that it serves you and is acceptable. You can't drag your ego kicking and screaming, but you can train it and teach it and explain to it how, yes, I know you're outer focused, and yes, I know it was dangerous and you feel like you need to protect me. Thank you for protecting me. But for a little while, we're going to let go of the protection, and I am going to literally focus inside of my own cellular structure. I'm going to close my eyes. I'm going to go inside, and I'm just going to gently breathe into everything that's inside of me. I'm going to let go of Satan. In Aramaic, Satan means the resistor, one who misleads. I'm going to let go of my resistance, and I am going to let go of all the stories that I have about how I'm better than everybody else and it's all their fault. And if they only knew as much as I did, it's just, I'm going to let go of all those stories and just be in relationship with that presence of love in me that is delivered throughout my structure with the breath, and recognize that it's safe to do that, and that you don't have to perform to be accepted. You can accept yourself if you were the laziest person in the world, that you could gently just accept who you are within your own physiology and let all defensiveness, all hypervigilance go, because the creator that created not only you but the whole universe saw fit to give you the breath of life. Engage in it and receive it, and you don't need anything else.
That's amazing. And I'll tell you why. Because you mentioned vision, the inner vision. Well, guess how much of our population, including me, don't want to see. And we shut our vision down, or don't want to hear.
And it sounds like your throat's shutting down a little bit too.
Yeah. And so
take the breath to those places where your chest is tightening and wanting to close down. Your throat.
Yeah. And that's because I have a piece of coconut down it.
Well, now that's not good. That doesn't feel good.
I know, it tickles. But what I just perceived, we have talked about the using one word as the portal for the Christ mind, the gateway, the portal, the other expressions we've used, whatever fits the person for seeing that, the doorway. But what I realized when you were talking was that rucha, the breath, is the portal to the Christ mind.
That's it. It's the deliverer of it.
It's the deliverer, and that makes sense in relation to heart math or any other number of things, because the heart math says that the emotions are 10 times as powerful as the thought. So I'm never going to get to the Christ mind through the rabbit hole of thought.
No, that's right. But letting go of the thought disorders.
Yeah. I got to go through that door, and that's the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
If I want to get rid of my thought disorders, I have to let go and stop thinking, or as you say, recycling old information.
Yeah, letting go of the thought disorders opens the portal. Opens the veil, opens the barrier.
Any thought that is less than embedded in love is a thought disorder.
Yes. And the simple delivery of that presence of love by the breath to the part of the structure that is tense, that is tight, that is locked up, that is in Satan, in the Aramaic sense, meaning the resistor, one who misleads. The delivery of that presence of love by the breath is what will soften. And, my favorite metaphor there is water carved the Grand Canyon. Breath carves through all that is unhuman in us and in our genetic history and frees us from it. And that's forgiveness.
And the purpose of the ego is to bring us to the realization that it cannot take us there. It can't take us there. And that means that it has a service, because at some point, all of us wake up one by one and say, oh my God, ego me, the persona of me can't take me there. I have to let go. I
EGO.
have to breathe.
Yep. You
I
break
have
those
to-
initials
I
down,
have to-
edging God or love out.
Yep.
And that's the disordered thinking of the non-being mind. And the epitome of what needs to ultimately be opened, felt, and processed through is the core of the power person dynamic. Otherwise, it runs every instant of everyone's life. Literally, it runs the world. I don't care what church, what business, what community center, what family, until the individuals involved there comprehend and work through the power person dynamic. When stress starts to move, that runs the game.
And isn't it interesting? It was my mother that I created as my power person. And my mother, the mother is Ruha is mommy. She's the nanny. She's the nurturer, the protector, the corrector, the advisor, all of those things, which is sort of like the woman so often has charge of even in indigenous cultures, had charge of the children through preschool. And then the fathers took over the training of the children into the survival training for how to get along in earthly life.
Right.
And I went, whoa,
And
whoa.
yeah, I would take care of, and I hear the potential for this falling into a self-blame thing. The power person dynamic I created, you didn't create the power person dynamic, and there's no volition involved in creating the power person dynamic. The power person dynamic is instilled in the mind as a result of circumstance, of events. And there are three events. That, well, there isn't even interpretation in it. When these events happened, it's an energetic dynamic that occurs spontaneously and automatically. When the power person, and it's usually a parent with a child, when the power person has more power over the child than the child has themselves, that's the first circumstance. The power person, usually the parent, is not functioning as a human being, is not functioning as love. And the child perceives that circumstance as survival. When those three things happen simultaneously, the energy field of the child opens wide. There is no censor. There is no ability to refuse any energy that's in the environment, and everything is just sucked up like a sponge. The power person, maybe in their mind they're raging but doesn't say a word. But if this dynamic kicks in, the circumstances are there that opens the field of the child, then every energy dynamic, including the rage in the power person's mind, is absorbed into the child's field. Once that occurs, until that's resolved, there are only three behaviors that a person will ever do for the rest of their lives. And the thing that determines what their behavior will be, which of the three behaviors will be active, are the level of stress they're under. When there's little or no stress, then that person's persona and behavior will be that of whatever they did to get along with their power person. In this regard, we are all multiple personalities. There's no such thing, or at least I've never met anybody who isn't a multiple personality. When there's little or no stress, we'll do what we did to get along with our power person. Let's say I was Mr. or Ms. Nice Guy, and I meet somebody and we're in a relationship and we have a great time together, and the only thing they know about me, my persona, is that I'm Mr. Nice Guy. Because they've never seen me when either stress is building or I'm ultra stressed. But when stress starts to build, everybody has an alternative personality based in behavior. It's actually an alternative behavior. So when the stress starts to build, I'll no longer do what I did to get along with my power person. I'll do what I did to resist and survive with my power person. So let's say my normal persona is Mr. or Ms. Nice Guy. When the stress starts to build, I flip out of Mr. or Ms. Nice Guy, and all of a sudden, I'm Mr. Snarky. Now, maybe we've been married for 10 years and we've never seen me with that level of stress. And all of a sudden you look at me and go, what the hell happened to you? You're Mr. Nice Guy. How did you get to be so snarky? And I'll apologize for it, and I'll say, gee, it'll never happen again. And guess what? It'll never happen again until I get back into where the stress builds up. And there's no choice about it. That part of the mind will simply take over. This is where many people say, why is it? Remember Paul supposedly knew the teachings of Christ. Lots of people pretend. They got lots of stories, lots of John the Baptist level stories that everybody goes, wow, that really explains it. Bullshit. Doesn't explain it at all. But, the person who gets to that Mr. Nice Guy or that Mr. Snarky level, why? Because that's what they did to resist and survive with their power person. And the stress level in the mind now flips into and demands that behavior. And then the third level of behavior is when we become ultra stressed. And when ultra stressed, we'll do what our power person did to us that we hated the most. That runs the world. And when you recognize that that runs the world, you can start in order to recognize that, you've got to have started to work through it, at least started. Then you can have compassion for people who move from, gee, I've always known you as Mr. Nice Guy. Now you're being Mr. Snarky. What's wrong with you? Well, your behavior in that case, your behavior just raised my level of stress. And now I'm in what I did to resist and survive with my power person. Become ultra stressed, and you'll see exactly what the power person did to the person who's acting it out. And they're the dynamics that need to be forgiven. Again, there are lots of John the Baptist stories. Somebody discovered, this way we could understand it and explain it in this way. And there's transactional analysis, and all of those things have benefit, just like, John the Baptist had benefit. But while he was the highest and everybody went, wow, that's so cool, it was zero when it came to entering into the mind of Christ. And we're looking to work to enter into the mind of Christ, not just repair the mind of the ego. Because in the last analysis, as Yeshua said, there is no truth. If that is our Father, like who's your daddy? If your power person dynamic is your father, there is no truth in him. Why is there no truth? Because whatever is being presented, it presents as the present, and everything that's in there by definition is from the past. It can't be the truth. And there is no life in the past, and there is no future in the past. And it's a dissolving of those dynamics from the mind that allows us to step into actual human life. Not the mind's cheap definitions of I love you, that is, I approve of you as long as you're doing what I've been telling you to do. But the minute you violate one of my goals, now all of a sudden I don't love you. It's not that I loved you in the first place. You can't love anybody. Love is what you are. The pursuit is to experience and live as what you are, and to free yourself of the power person dynamic, which interrupts that process. Because you cannot be yourself while the power person dynamic is operating in you. And the ultimate resolution is she who undoes the effects of our errors and teaches us the truth. And she is the breath. Without her, we're in denial. We shut the breath down. You're in denial of the Holy Spirit. You can't resolve the dilemma. Because, the other game of the mind is, I've got it figured out. If I could just figure this out. It's like, if I'm in a room with, let's say, 100 people in it and we're teaching, and I get everybody in the room to tell me their ages. We add all their ages up. And then we subtract 5 from each of them, 5 years, and then we add all their ages up. I now know precisely how many years these people in this room have been trying to figure it out. And you can't figure it out. I don't care how brilliant you are. You can't figure it out. But you can forgive it. And there's where the brilliance of one man stands. He said, here's how you break it down. Here's how you get to claim your human life. And by the way, folks, he said, I'm only here for one reason. I have no interest in delivering you a religion or doctrine or dogma. I want to deliver you back into relationship with the source of your life. And I'm going to give you the tools with which to have life and have it more abundantly. And there's one that's at the core of it that I came to connect you with. Deny me, but not her, or you're in trouble. And there's nothing religious. They turned the whole thing into a religion, but there's nothing religious about it. It's just, here's how the system works. Here's where the key tool is. What's the key tool? It's called forgiveness. Oh, but I don't want to let them off the hook for that terrible thing. Good. Don't ever forgive anybody. I'm in with you. Never forgive anybody for anything, but learn to forgive continuously. That is, learn to apply the active presence of love and breath to everything in your mind that's less than love to free yourself of the past. Otherwise, you'll be the dead bearing the dead and the blind leading the blind. That's where most people live. So breathing with you, Celinda.
Thank you. And it seems to me that's where Yeshua took up his cross after he was baptized by John the Baptist. He fulfilled their rules, and then he went off into the desert.
And we have a whole movement, especially in this country, of people who are going about pouring water on each other and calling it baptism. Yeshua never did.
Yep.
He accepted a baptism because it was part of the Judaic tradition, but he never poured water on anybody. What did he do?
Right. Exactly.
He baptized people in Ruka Dekudsha, the breath.
Right. Right.
He showed them, and again, it's nothing to do with baptism and religion in the religious sense. It's like that's been taken over by the religions, by churchianity. What was his baptism? It was in the breath. It was the spirit. in the Ruka, delivering into every cell the active presence of love through the breath, and that is the master solvent for stepping up the energy level of all solidified trauma and dissolving it from tissue, which is forgiveness. Learn to do that continuously, but never bother with this letting anybody else off the hook. I mean, you can if you want, but call it what it is. It's pardoning. And if you feel it's appropriate to pardon someone, great, do it, but call it what it is. And then if there's trauma in you, take your breath there and dissolve the trauma and free yourself of it.
What I meant by that was, in my perception, that's when Yeshua went on to do his own carrying of his cross until he came to the point at the Last Supper and the Garden of Gethsemane, in his those were the last forgiveness works. If we can surmise that, I don't know. Maybe when he was carrying his cross the whole way, he was doing forgiveness work. And maybe
I think the major detox happened with the sweating of blood in Gethsemane. That's where he came out and he just demonstrated exactly what human life would do to its archenemy. And the person who was trying to attack what the world would call his archenemy, he called him Satan, Peter. And what did he? And he defined Peter. He defined what he meant when he called Peter Satan. And what did he find? He said, "For you think in the mind of man rather than the plan of God. You're stuck in carbon-based memory. Your generational data bank, right down to, and that mind operates. Its operation includes everything that's ever happened in your genetic history." So breathing with you and letting loose of it, letting it soften wherever your physiology's tightened, wherever there's that fear that causes the hypervigilance, to turn that fear over to your breath, soften the tissue where the gate, the veil is closed to it.
It's so interesting to see how automatic that not breathing is. Even when I'm desiring to learn something, I am in a state of tension. I think that's fascinating.
Yeah. And the thing is, this stuff does not change by volition. I mean, volition starts the process, but then you have to do the work. And nobody really wants to do the work. Oh, give me a shortcut. Don't make me look. Don't make me actually have to use the tools. Don't make me have to go into the deep, dark, insane, complex power person dynamic that I was so terrified by as a child. Don't make me have to actually do that and clean it up. I want an easy story. I want a fun story. I want a story from John the Baptist. I don't want this Ruka the Kucha guy.
Give me a fairy tale.
Yeah, give me a fairy tale. Yeah. I have a story that makes it easy and I don't really have to do it. So I join you in taking the time each day. Working up to the point where you willingly, because you experience the benefit of it, you literally experience the physiological relief. And when you realize that how many thousands of millions of lives, unresolved dynamics are in our genes, 2.4 hours a day isn't much to spend with Ruka, moving the energy, softening into the deepest places where we've hidden the things we don't want to deal with. So I join you in the willingness to do that. And as you determine to take your practice to the next level, I'll join you and do the same.
Thank you. I appreciate all of the family of love that supports me in ways that I cannot even imagine.
You got it. That's what we're here for.
Amen.
Tis an honor and a privilege. Feel blessed to have the opportunity because, of course, as Richard Bach said, we teach best that which we most need to learn. So here we are, learning it together. So much appreciation, young lady. I acknowledge the integrity. You know, I've watched your journey unfold for several years now, and the moments of great resistance and the moments of great acceptance and the movement into deeper and deeper states of presence of love. So joining you in that, it's an honor and a delight to be part of your process.
And the same to you.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. And, you know, hopefully you've got the instructions for, if you're on the show, you obviously have the instructions for how you got here. Pass it on to somebody. Invite somebody to come and join us and have the best year yet of your eternal life. By the way, we had talked about how we were going to be next week because they are starting on Friday because of the intensive. We were going to be going to Podbeam, and Podbeam will still be happening. However, we do have, and thank you, Daniel, for being here. Daniel's a friend of ours from decades and decades ago. He was one of the original people at Heartland way back when, he and his wife. And he's a techie. And he said, hey, I know how to put those things that you're going to do on Zoom. So you can just stay with what you're doing. You don't have to go to Podbean. We're going to have the whole thing live. Daniel will be doing it. If there are any problems with it, you know, Podbean will be a backup because Jeannie had already set that up, and so that happens automatically. So we're going to leave that in place, but you can just stay with the Zoom call every day, and we'll be rocking it. So thanks for joining.